The show version of the story, A Song of Ice and Fire, has a character known as the Night King, not to be confused with the legendary character of history and lore called the Night's King, who has an apostrophe in his name. But for years, people have been confusing the two. The Night's King, with an apostrophe, was the 13th Lord Commander of the Night's Watch, so like many of you, I've been, quote, correcting people for years. But there's a chance that the dude we see on the show actually is the 13th Lord Commander. Here are two reasons why I'm starting to wonder if they're one and the same. Number one, there's something strange about the number 13. The last hero supposedly had 12 companions, and the legendary Night's King was the 13th Lord Commander. So 12 Lord Commanders came before him, and he ruled as the Night's King for 13 years. But the strangest thing is that the Night King in the show had 12 buddies in the epic scene from Season 4, Episode 4, Oathkeeper. Speaking of that episode, number 2, after they aired it, the summary of the episode originally called him Night's King instead of Night King. They changed it to Night King without the apostrophe and said it was a mistake, but what if the Night's King and the Night King are the same person? If so, we're suckers, and HBO team got away with a huge spoiler. However, there's evidence against this theory. First, George R. R. Martin was asked if they're the same character, and he said, quote, "As for the Night's King, the form I prefer with the apostrophe. In the books, he is a legendary figure akin to Lan the Clever and Bran the Builder, and no more likely to have survived to the present day than they have. So it seems like he is saying they are different, and it seems like he is saying that the Night's King is no longer alive. But he never technically said either of those things. Number 2, the timeline does not really work out. Supposedly, the first men arrived and warred with the children, and the children created the Night King as a weapon against them. Then they created a peace pact. But the White Walkers returned thousands of years later. The Long Night happened, the White Walkers were pushed back, then they created the Wall, then they created the Night's Watch, and then the Andals arrived. So if the Night King was the first White Walker, then it doesn't make sense for him to have been the 13th Lord Commander. And we have evidence from the show that the show Night King was the first White Walker. The storyboard of the Season 4 scene suggests that it was the first time the children ever did this, and Leaf's dialogue also suggests that he was the first White Walker.
It was you. You made the White Walkers.
We were at war.
Moreover, the same actor that got Dragonglass shoved into his chest played the Night King at Hardhome. Nonetheless, there's a chance that the timeline's wrong, because we can't really trust written and oral history and lore. Plus, the cave painting dude in Season 7 had a crown, so he was probably a Night King for lack of better words, but he had a goatee, and the Night King we know doesn't have a goatee. So I'm not sold that the Night King is the Night's King, but I'm also not sold that he's not. Bran has the information, but he needs to defrag it before he can relay that information to his buddies and to us as viewers. But long story short, I do not think the Night King is a force of pure evil. There are only 6 episodes left, but there's still time to get more information from either Bran or Sam, who stole books out of the restricted section of the Citadel. Now apologies for saving this into the end, but here's a quick recap of the 13th Lord Commander, otherwise known as the Night's King. He was the 13th Lord Commander, knew no fear, married what is described as a female White Walker, and used sorcery of some kind to get his brothers of the Night's Watch to do his bidding. The sorcery part sounds like one of 3 things. Maybe he skin changed them and controlled them like Bran did to Hodor. Or maybe he converted them into White Walkers. Or maybe the history and lore are biased. Maybe his brothers sided with him because they believed in whatever he believed in. Maybe they did not see the White Walker girl as an enemy. The humans supposedly found out, after the fact, that he had been sacrificing to the White Walkers, but we don't have details on what that means. Maybe he was sacrificing brothers of the Night's Watch, or maybe he was sacrificing babies, maybe his own babies. If it refers to brothers of the Night's Watch, maybe they weren't sacrifices per se, maybe the dudes wanted to become White Walkers. Rumor has it that the Night's King was either a Bolton, a Magnar of Skagos, an Umber, Flint, Nori, or Woodfoot. But Old Nan says, nah, he was a Stark, brother of the man who brought him down. The brother of Brandon the Breaker, King of Winter. Old Nan has been wrong before, but she's usually right. So I believe her, the 13th Lord Commander, the Night's King, was probably a Stark. And his brother brought him down. But notice that it never says he was killed, just that he was brought down. So maybe that means that Brandon Stark and Joramun, the King Beyond the Wall, maybe they chased him north of the Wall. Or maybe they almost killed him and he was dying, but then his Night Queen wife converted him into a White Walker. Or maybe the Children of the Forest did. What do you think? Can we trust the lore about the Night's King? Was he really a bad dude? And can we trust the timeline, or is there a chance that the Night's King from the lore is the Night King whom we know and love in the show?